solve these cases.
We've got some interviews. One was on Rolling Stones, so if that adds any credence to it, man.
Okay,
it's
all right.
out
I mean, I would assume they would have done some research, or there's some amount of, certification attached to these people.
Yeah, do they send out some sort of badge or maybe a sticker, like I completed the puzzle? Who's to say? I'm Trevor Collins. I'm your local resident enthusiast. With me, as every week, Alfredo Diaz.
Hello, I'm the person that likes to stay away from such nefarious deeds of the internet.
I keep them
Anything
awake at night.
spooky. Not a fan. So yeah, I mean, we last left off some people solved it, got through the time gate.
There was a time-gated website in the dark web. People made it through, had some leaks as to what happened after Puzzle 1. That's where we're at.
Not seen again.
Well, who's to say?
Yeah,
This is the internet.
Last I was told, and then Cicada came back a year later.
Much like a cicada, they come back. And what's worth noting here before we dive neck deep into Puzzle 2 is that there are a lot of methods within here that are very familiar. So I'm going to do my best to focus on the new styles of puzzle, the new types of clues, and kind of gloss over the methods that we went into detail with on Puzzle 1. So if you haven't listened to Part 1, I encourage you to do so, but if you haven't, you won't miss a beat. We'll pick up where we left off, and here we are, Puzzle 2. 1 year and 1 day later, January 5th, 2013. Puzzle 2 drops on 4chan with another image that says, quote, "Hello again. Our search for intelligent individuals now continues. The first clue is hidden within this message. Find it, and it will lead you on the road to look forward to meeting the few that will make it all the way through. Good luck." End quote. So we're starting off the very same way as Puzzle 1.
Just ping the collect.
With the same method, dug into that image to find the next clue using outguess, and with that they found a book code and another riddle, which, again, glossing over these familiar paths, these familiar solving methods, people were able to decrypt that book code, which led to a new type of clue within these puzzles, a Dropbox link, which contained a 130 megabyte ISO image for download. And if you're unfamiliar, an ISO image is sort of an archive file, and it contains everything that will be written onto an optical disk. It's essentially a desktop way to boot up a copy of a CD, I guess. That's the only way I've ever used it. But if you booted that up, if you loaded up that ISO image, it had 3 directories in it: data, boot, and audio. Now, if you looked into the boot, it would initiate the boot sequence, and long story short, it showed a lot of prime numbers, ending with the quote here, "The key is all around you. Good luck." So that's the boot sequence, but what I want to focus on here is the audio directory. Now, we haven't seen much audio so far with Cicada outside of the voicemail for Puzzle 1, but within the audio directory was an MP3 file entitled 761.mp3, which is interesting because it's yet another one of these prime numbers that Cicada seems so obsessed about. And a prime number, just in case I haven't defined that yet, is a number that is only divisible by itself and 1. 3301 is actually yet another prime number. But this MP3 file had a short music track featuring a guitar. People continued to analyze that music track along with the other clues here in the ISO image, and that led somebody to a Twitter account. And now this is the first time a Twitter account has showed up, but there was a JPEG image on that Twitter account with a rune table. It had 3 columns with 29 individual entries, each column labeled rune, letter, and then value. Now, of course, up until this point, I want to know we haven't seen runes at any point. So what are we decoding here?
Yeah.
Well, maybe that was a misdirect, because once people looked into the back end of that image using a familiar method with outguess, they figured it contained yet another hidden message. However, the message at first appeared to be blank, containing nothing but spaces and tabs. But if you converted those spaces and tabs into binary values, and then converted that again, you would be able to figure out what the true message is, which then pointed to a .onion address, which is essentially an anonymous dark web address. So we're back. We're deep back in the dark web already, just like that.
Here we go. The dark web, the place you... Oh, man. See, at first I was like, if I was smart enough, to
Sure.
get through this. Imagine getting like
Okay,
an email
you're going to steal
with
a diamond
an
shipment from
address
Evangelico Fine.
you know, or something, right? Because I'm
Right.
sure big chance they'd
A
want to
client wants
contact
these
you.
rocks, but you won't pay retail price.
Like,
I think we
trying
can
to
help.
rush us.
Get over there and put some of our technology to
Also,
use.
yeah, behind
I'll
that,
talk you through
Fight
it.
or flight.
which is
You know what?
again,
I
this
don't
is
like
surprising.
working with other people either, but it's the only way I can do anything. You got a crew on board, this whole thing would go easier.
Yeah, right.
Also, like, do you want to like wire me up? Maybe keep a tab on me? I don't know. I might go missing. Shit might happen.
Right. I'm gonna install a camera just for you cops because, like, I need you watching that camera while Cicada's likely watching through my webcam right now.
Yeah.
I thought you knew what you were doing. Okay, backup plan. Grab the diamonds and get out of there before this whole thing goes to shit.
This is only gonna help.
Looks like you're coming up on the jewelers. Don't rush in just yet. We're doing this calmly and methodically. Use the drone for some reconnaissance on the store. And
It also had a
disable the
text
alarm
image
before
on it.
making a move.
That was nice to see. But interacting with that page revealed another hidden message which pointed to yet another
Got them?
onion
Alright,
address.
now get
which
them
had
over to
similar
our client.
message
They know these diamonds will be hot, but there's hot
So this is
and
the
there's
second
hot.
time
Don't
that
leave
we've
any
heard
places to drop off.
this is virtue. So I don't know if this guy's a fan of the mummy.
Looks like the competition can see you.
Or
I hope
if
we
this
can
is
handle
something
them.
that, like, they are trying to indicate. I should say it's probably at this point from our analysis of part one. But looking into the HTML of that website, they were able to figure out, okay, well, it's not literally being patient, it's moreover that something's going to happen on this webpage. And that was figured out because of the quote, which means come back soon. There was a hidden line added after patience is a virtue. So the full quote, for clarity, is patience is a virtue, which means come back soon. So of course, after people figured that out, the site temporarily went down, only to come back with yet another message. Quote, you already have everything you need to continue. Sometimes you must knock on the sky and listen to the sound. Good luck. End quote. So ultimately, you know, again, there's some similar methods here, so glossing through some of the details. Ultimately, this led to a third website with a message telling everybody to stand by for coordinates. Now, this should sound familiar because we got to this point last time. And just like the first puzzle, these coordinates span the globe across 3 different countries. Though I am seeing on different sources that it might have been 4 countries, and I wanted to note that, but the 3 countries we know for sure, the United States, Russia, and Japan.
No.
So,
Great job.
again, we're
Your
back
payment
very
should be in your account now.
People set out into the real world to figure out what is at these coordinates. Again, these posters were right on point. This time, though, the Cicada posters had a unique phone number and access code on each one. People then called those numbers an automated voice message, asking them to enter those access codes. And those then led to yet another .onion address. And each poster actually had a different address associated with it. So everybody had to go to these different pages and combine the results from all of these addresses in order to find one final .onion address, which, just like the first puzzle, asked for the user's email address. And this is where we end, once again, the public-facing facts of the case. At this point, whatever happens beyond this, I have to say we need to take with a grain of salt because they are just leaks. They are supposedly stories from people who have made it past this point. One thing I also thought about while researching this is that while Puzzle 1 made it a point to say, we don't want everybody, we want the best and not the rest. We want the first and not the followers. So what's strange to me is that they forced people to go out across 3 or 4 countries, find these, I guess, steps to a puzzle, and then they essentially forced everybody to share this information together. You needed all the information from all of these different posters in order to find the final page. So strangely, they are now kind of asking for people to work together. So I'm wondering why that is.
Changing it up? I don't know. Like,
Maybe.
yeah, I don't know. Or maybe they found something, you know, it's just tweaks and stuff from the first time they ran this, and they went, okay, like, not everyone can get to these different things. We want the best and brightest, and they, you know, if they are able to get to this, then they could share that information. No problem.
Maybe. I don't know. But sometime later, again, someone leaked what came after this. And it actually was a test sent to those who did enter their emails. The test supposedly contained abstract questions on philosophy, math, emotions, and things of that nature, almost like a personality test. And someone actually noted, this is a very specific thing to noted, but someone noted that these supposed questions were very, very similar to those that Google asked its interviewees. So if you were interviewing for a job at Google, they would ask you these personality questions, ultimately to determine what your personality was and to see if you would work well within the company, with a certain team, with certain individuals. I haven't personally done anything like that, but I've heard of tactics like that before. So maybe they're just trying to say, like, all right, here's the test. What is your ideology? Will you fit within whatever Cicada's putting down?
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be a team thing. You don't really have a personality test unless you need a bunch of people to work together.
Right, so you either have a team or you have a very strong ideology.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Yeah, that could be that as well. But I would assume that they aren't the best players to work together. It's scary.
Yeah. It just, like, honestly, in the back of my mind, it just keeps reminding me of that Die Hard movie with the fire sale, right? A bunch of brilliant minds made pieces of code that were all unified to make this scary thing that could basically break the country's infrastructure.
Yeah.
But those who took the test said that it saved 2 cookies on the computer. Cookies, just pieces of data. One started with 167 and the other started with 761. 2 prime numbers that are the same forwards and backwards. And you're going to start seeing that even more so as a trend as we continue to step into this arena. But prime numbers keep coming up, and I don't know if that's just kind of a like a signature style thing, or if that is some sort of it does relate back to that music track that I had discussed earlier that was entitled 761 After completing the test, each person was then emailed a message asking them to build a TCP server using specific protocols, then share it via Tor, which is the browser that you can use to visit the Onion website. And they were also given a deadline. It's also worth noting here, much like some of the leaks in Puzzle 1, the usual 3301 PGP signature that verified that it was in fact from Cicada was missing. That was not on this email address, or at least not on the parts that were leaked. However, multiple people claim that this is the case, that these are the emails that were being received.
Oh, that makes me skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why
Right.
wouldn't they? I don't.
Why wouldn't they verify it? Up until this point, they've made it very clear. Trust no, at least they've said it about clues. I don't know about emails, but they've said trust no clue that doesn't have our PGP signature. There's been a lot of false paths up to this point, you gotta remember. And I know for a fact that they've been trying to ensure that people take false paths. In fact, it's obvious, it's so obvious that this is important to them that it's a part of their initial image that kicked off Puzzle 2. So it's deeply ingrained in what they've been doing. For those who successfully completed their server or their part of the server, they were then met with silence for 2 weeks until they saw activity on those servers. Some people say that after this they received an email very similar to the first puzzle's leaked email. This specific email was never leaked again, so we don't know what this Puzzle 2 end email looks like, which makes this even more mysterious. So at this point, we're at the end of Puzzle 2. This is the conclusion of Puzzle 2 in the year 2013, and the trail officially goes cold. There is no final public message like there was at the end of the show.
Oh man. I mean, like these can change in a year, but why change up their tactics? I don't know. Like, there's no code, like signature essentially. They didn't say goodbye.
Well, the signature could be because it's leaked info. You know, maybe it's because it was lost in the leak, or that someone's making up the fact that this was an email. But you raised a good point earlier. It might be that they learned from Puzzle 1 that certain tactics, certain messages, certain methods either gave too much information or not enough, or maybe didn't find the right individuals. It's really hard to say. We just don't have a whole lot of information. But I want to recap Puzzle 2 because it is convoluted. There are a lot of steps, but I want to go step by step in the simplest way possible, so that way I can also recap only Puzzle 2, but highlighting some of the key pieces that I want to focus on that will come back later. So the puzzle kind of went like this. There was the initial image that had a hidden message within it. That led to a book code and a riddle, which then led to a Dropbox link containing that ISO image, which contained an audio track. This audio track led to a Twitter page and a JPEG image of a room table, whose hidden binary code led users to an Onion address. After a series of Onion addresses, users then found a series of different. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but Puzzle 3 is a monster. It is completely different up until this point. It's almost like Puzzle 1 and 2 were appetizers for the main course, because man, does Puzzle 3 go off the rails.
Oh, there was no way in hell I wouldn't even gotten close.
Oh no, many people would have gotten close. But no more spoilers. All right, so January 6, 2014. Remember that Twitter account that we now know about? Well, it seems like Cicada has started to look at their Twitter account to initiate their puzzles, because on that Twitter account, that very same day, a link to an Imgur image was made. It's the same Twitter account as the second puzzle, to be fully clear, and that image contained the following, quote, "Hello, Epiphany is upon you. Your pilgrimage has begun.
You know what's
Enlightenment
easier than
awaits.
robbing a bank?
Good luck."
Robbing
Signed,
bank robbers.
3301.
And as luck would have it, there's a 211 on the
again,
police scanner, so
It
we're in
starts off
business.
very much like
You're
the
plugged
other
into
two
the
puzzles.
traffic camera.
Black background image with simple white text. So of course, using the same method as the other two puzzles, people were able to figure out the hidden message within it, and that went as follows. Quote, "The work of a private man who wished to transcend. He trusted himself to produce from within." This message was signed with that very same PGP key, verifying that
these
this
guys
was
look
in
like
fact Cicada 3301, and that Puzzle 3 was officially started.
Oh, so there we go.
Then again, they don't have me. Try and take them down before more cops show up,
Like,
or you'll be fighting on all
I don't know
fronts.
why you would change it up, right? Like, because I would think, okay, you know, you don't put it in, you're changing it up, but then to not put it in, then put it in later.
I will say that I think the PGP key has been a part of all of these web pages and all of the clues. That's my supposition, I guess. I haven't made that very clear, but Cicada themselves.
Okay, so that is a BB gun. Take it out quick and try not to get shot into chunks.
I think it's important to note at the beginning of these puzzles, so that way you know for a fact that this is starting with Cicada themselves. And I think it's also important to note that these links lack the PGP key, so that way you know that the validity there is still in question. Otherwise, I think it is worth assuming that these steps have the PGP key attached to them. It's just that at that juncture on step 2, 5, it's not necessarily. Okay. But yeah, it is interesting if they are leaving it out of their email correspondence. That would be very strange to me. Now, before we get too deep into this puzzle, I want to recognize ahead of time that this puzzle, Puzzle 3, is incredibly technical and much more convoluted than even Puzzle 2 started to get. Many methods used in this puzzle are very similar to the methods already covered, so I don't want to spend too much time getting bogged down in puzzle
Okay,
details.
I've got a client who'll take this off our hands, as long as the cops are out of the picture. Lose them and drop it off.
If there's interest, I'd be happy to cover the details.
And other crews can see where you are. Be careful out there.
Sometime outside of the episode. Purely for those who are curious, I'd be happy to go through all of these steps. With that said, let's quickly distill Puzzle 3 into its major components and the pieces that we need to proceed with this mystery. So again, we have the inciting image and its hidden message, as well as the PGP key verifying that this is an official clue that Puzzle 3 has officially started. And the rest of the puzzle continues as follows. And I'm going to distill this kind of like I did at the end of Puzzle 2. Again, this is extraordinarily complicated. So, I think it's worth doing. The image's hidden message led to a book, which then led to a .onion address containing photos and paintings, which led to yet another webpage containing a document filled with characters. Analyzing that led to the title of a book called Liber Primus, and the story rules, as well as the text titled Chapter 1, Introduce. So those are 3 pieces of information that we have at this point.
Okay.
Yeah. At this point, a user would be left cycling between web pages, images, and runes over and over again, leading then finally to an MP3 file, which then promptly went offline once it was found, only to be replaced with a painting. Several more images and another MP3 file later were left with a message from Cicada asking users to decipher the runes and upload those solutions. Cicada then went dark after this. Now hit me with your questions, just in case, because I know that was a hyper truncation of Puzzle 3.
Okay, fine work.
Look at all
I
this
hope you're happy with that paycheck.
And I would not even touch any of this. Oh my god, it is such a wild goose chase.
It gets weird, man. And the paintings are old-timey style, like as if they're paintings of George Washington. There's one that almost looks like an inverted painting with a faded cicada in the background with a bunch of prime numbers. Very eerie looking. Again, as always, any visual elements that you want to see, we'll always post over on our Twitter page at RedWebPod. So please follow us there if you want to check out any of those. But the things to note out of this, the facts to pull away, are that book called Liber Primus, the list of runes, because remember, runes came up in Puzzle 2 and were never addressed.
It's there for taking.
And then we
Get it
also
and bring
have
it back to the
text
warehouse.
that was offered to us that said, quote, Chapter 1, Intus. So some Latin in there for those of you who studied that back in middle school. But ultimately, it's worth focusing on that book, Primus. It's a book written by Cicada in the very runes that we saw back in Puzzle 2. Now, looking at that Latin, it actually translates to first book. So this implies that Cicada might be writing some other books down the way, maybe giving some further clues in other books. Who's to say? At this point, this is where we're at. We have this book of runes that we can finally activate that rune table for Puzzle 2.
That's crazy. We're going back to something that was there and turned out to be nothing, but is actually something. So, man, are they really thinking this many steps ahead?
I don't know. I really don't. But, you know, with a year of silence to yourself and a giant, or potentially giant, secret society going on, there is the opportunity for this to become very convoluted. Obviously, Puzzle 1 was entirely self-contained. Puzzle 2 had a couple elements that weren't really addressed, and now Puzzle 3 is enormous. I can't convey to you appropriately just how big that puzzle got. I simplified it a lot at the time, but it's reaching backwards now into Puzzle 2. It's probably projecting forward into what we don't even know yet, but what's weird, or even creepy, is like people started to translate this book, and many of the translations still came up cryptic and philosophical, and I thought it would be appropriate to read maybe the first 2 pages of this book. It starts with a warning, no less.
Of course.
And then it goes into Chapter 1 entitled Intus. And just as an aside, my personal conjecture here is that they gave us the text Chapter 1 Intus, as well as the runes, as well as the book, almost as a key, as a starting point in order to start our translation, because I don't believe Chapter 1 Intus was written in English language or in English letters. So I feel like that's how people started to get their foothold on translating this book. But anyway, let's read a warning from Cicada at the beginning of this book. Quote, a warning. Believe nothing from this book except what you know to be true. Test the knowledge, find your truth, experience your death. Do not edit or change this book or the message contained within, either the words or their numbers, for all is sacred. So, they are taking this book extraordinarily seriously.
Almost like sacred.
Yeah, they're definitely calling it sacred, and this is almost like a light threat to those who have led false paths up until this point to try to steal attention away from Cicada. So Chapter 1 is entitled Intus, which translates to inside, and it starts with the following. Obviously, it's longer than this, but this is the first passage from Chapter 1. It says, quote, Welcome, pilgrim, to the great journey toward the end of all things. It is not an easy trip, but for those who find their way here, it is a necessary one. Along the way, you will find the end to all struggle and suffering, your innocence, your illusions, your certainty, and your reality. Ultimately, you will discover an end to self. End quote.
It's getting kind of cultish now.
It's getting weird, man. Yeah, I mean, it's sending goosebumps up my spine.
What the hell? Okay. I mean, at first it seemed like maybe it's kind of like government-esque, but this is very much steering me away from that train of thought.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think it's worth, at the end of all of this, to reassess the kind of the theories that we established back in Part 1, to see where we land on, you know, those very same ideas, now that we have a little bit more information. But, you know, beyond the runes, there also appear to be many clues and codes within the book itself. This is where we start discovering loose ends in Puzzle 3. For example, there's a page instructing users to find yet another page on the dark web, or another website, I should say, on the dark web. That website has yet to be found. Furthermore, many of the runic translations are obscured by encryption on top of the translations, leaving many pages to remain untranslated. What that is might have encrypted it into a different code before converting it into runes, or they could have converted it into runes and then used some sort of cipher to change the runes from there, if you know what I'm saying.
Jeez, all above my pay grade.
That's going to make this much more complicated. It's not going to be this symbol is A, this symbol is B. What they might do is they say, okay, A becomes H, B becomes I, and then you convert it into runes. Or maybe they somehow shuffle up the alphabet. So they're adding essentially more cryptography on top of their already strange translation to runes.
Well, yeah, they need the best of the best, so...
That's very true, actually. They do need the best of the best, and so that makes a lot of sense. And this reminds me now of, like, World War I and II days when people were trying to decipher Germanic codes or vice versa, when they were trying to decipher the United States codes. Because Morse code was just able to be pulled out of the air. You could listen to the radio waves and hear what people were saying. But anyway, that's something I'm not an expert in. But currently, all the way up to today, by the way, that website hasn't been found. And to today, only 19 of a total 74 pages have been successfully translated into any meaningful language.
What?
Yeah. This, it's weird. And again, there are a lot of pages.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a ton, but it's also, like, out to the public, though, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's out to the public. You can go check out those runes if you want on that rune table. You can go find all 74 pages if you want. You can read even further into those 19 pages. I read 2 of them, obviously, but you can read the rest to see for yourself. This is what I like about some of the mysteries we touch on, is that some of them are tangible. Some of them you can actually take part in. This one is just so complicated that this is where this puzzle kind of ends, you know? I think it is a small note, but worth noting that the 19 pages that were translated, I think 17 of them were at the very beginning of the book, and 2 of them were at the very end. So it's in the middle that we don't know what's going on. But this is officially the end to Puzzle 3. Again, skipping over some minor details along the way, but that's the end. And people were caught up on translating these runes. Obviously, it's very difficult. It's so difficult that even in the public realm, people are not able to come forward translating these pages unless some genius is out there slowly making their way through it by themselves.
yeah.
You know, people just kind of waited to see if anything would come from Cicada through the rest of the year.
I think it's insane that, like, the world has had their hands on it and hasn't translated it. And maybe it's just me and, you know, I'm not one to, like, try and decipher stuff like this. It's never been my wheelhouse, but I would assume if you had a handful of pages, it kind of snowballs, and you just start plugging in pieces to the other pages, and, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you would think, and maybe that's what happened with the first 19 pages, you know? That's where I think people started with chapter 1, Intus being okay, that's where you can start, because you have that language. You know that this is at the beginning of the book, so it's likely towards chapter 1. So that's where people got their foothold, and you can start, doing what you're saying, where, like, all right, we're picking up the pattern here, we're figuring it out, but then who's to say that every page after these 19 isn't somehow encoded in its own cipher, that it doesn't have its own unique way to translate? So you could either figure out the cipher and unlock the rest of the pages, or you might figure out a very difficult cipher and suddenly only get one extra page. It's just hard to say.
I think the crazy thing too is I don't know, this is just me just speculating, kind of just throwing stuff out there, but imagine, you know, everyone's like working together and piecing things bit by bit, and, you know, someone gets a little bit further ahead, sees a little message or, you know, one of the pages, and is kind of like forced to change their way of thinking, go the solo route, you know?
Could be.
Like, you don't know if people just are kind of like, oh, okay, this is where I'm supposed to branch off by myself,
Yeah.
right? Because the last episode I was waiting for it, right? That beat the drop of like,
Right.
everyone's working together, cool, but like, if they want the best, want the brightest, where's that cutoff?
Right.
This could be that cutoff.
Yeah. And we just wouldn't know it because it's translated behind a very difficult code. It could literally say,
Yep.
from here on, you are by yourself. It could say that. That's very true. But there's also Puzzle 2 where they started introducing teamwork, essentially. And so maybe that was as a prelude to this book. So it could go either way. It could be, like you're saying, that there's some secret message within there that
Some would call that littering. I would call...
that I like to put the ads in. Huh? Right. Oh, isn't this nice? Another great review from the hit dude from September 1st. Another 5-star, thank you very much. Says, great podcast, been a G1er fan for a while. If you don't know, this is a great time to tell you. Alfredo and I are from the team called Achievement Hunter. That's right, we make videos on YouTube and other comedy, gaming content like that. So if that's your interest, you can check us out over there as well. I should also say that we are part of a bigger company known as Rooster Teeth. This is an opportunity to inform you guys on a little bit of behind the scenes of Red Web if you're new to us via this podcast. And welcome to the greater Rooster Teeth family. If you're new to us, we appreciate having you. But why don't we dive into some of the ads? So the first one here is from the mind of legendary filmmaker Ridley Scott, visionary director of Alien and Blade Runner, films you might recognize. They're very classic. This is his next sci-fi masterpiece. It's an HBO Max original series called Raised by Wolves. In this epic new series, 2 android guardians are tasked with a singular mission: to raise the last of mankind as their own, and to protect them at any cost. Don't miss Ridley Scott's highly anticipated U.S. television debut, Raised by Wolves, streaming only on HBO Max. And you can subscribe to the official Raised by Wolves companion podcast on iHeart, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or just like this podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. They're out there, in the airways. So thank you, Raised by Wolves. The next sponsor
You
is,
got the pickup
AT&T
point on your
5G
GPS?
and Samsung.
Okay,
So Rooster
I'll
Teeth
look...
is a company that we work for, as you know, but they also have a show, an anime called RWBY, R-W-B-Y, if you weren't aware of that. So Rooster Teeth is joining forces with Samsung and AT&T 5G to kick things off for our upcoming RTX at Home virtual event. RTX is something we do every year to meet with the fans and the community, so AT&T and Samsung are helping us bring RTX to you at home virtually this year in quarantine. So with this program, we are creating a RWBY outdoor mural that you can add art to from the comfort of your own home using the Mark Augmented Reality app. Just download the Mark app, start creating your own RWBY art right now, because each night, fan designs will be projected onto the mural wall, and you can see yours come to life via social media. If you're on the AT&T 5G network at home, you can also access the Plus mode through the Mark app, so it will allow you to get higher res videos and crystal clear images to explore on the app. But you can check out the new Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra 5G in order to do that if you'd like. It's also powered by AT&T 5G. Now, I want to say, AT&T 5G requires a compatible plan, and coverage is not available in all areas. So be mindful, look up that 5G map, see if it's available in your area, get that device, and you'll be able to contribute your art to the RWBY wall. Here's a couple of the new features that you can come to expect on the device, like cloud gaming. That'll be available through the power of 5G. You can try out cloud gaming with high-performance experiences brought to you via newest Samsung devices powered by AT&T 5G. The Galaxy Note 20 Ultra 5G also has a 120Hz adaptive display that automatically adjusts the refresh rate according to the content that you are viewing, and an intelligent battery life that optimizes for your gameplay so you can keep playing or watching for long periods of time. Between the 5G support and the Wi-Fi optimization and the advanced processor, okay, you get smooth gaming experiences with virtually no lag, which is excellent. It also has the S Pen, so you should check that out. When it comes to Samsung Notes, you can create your own works of art right there on the phone with this very intelligent S Pen. So head over to att.com/Galaxy Note 20 Ultra 5G so you can learn how to get the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 5G for free, or the Galaxy Note 20 5G Ultra for $299.99 for a limited time. Again, that's att.com/Galaxy Note 20 Ultra 5G. Head there, get yourself some. It's a great phone. They didn't ask me to say that, but they did send me one. I got hands-on with it. It's a lovely big screen. Looks beautiful, nice and smooth. So head on over there. You can learn how to get that phone. So thank you again, Samsung and AT&T 5G, for the sponsorship. We really appreciate it. But without further ado, let's conclude Cicada 3301. So this was 2014. So essentially, some people are like, all right, this book is very difficult to translate. Let's just see if something comes up in another year from now, January 2015. Because obviously, up until this point, every January, Cicada shows up. Well, January came and went, and there was no new puzzle. So some people started to speculate that Cicada maybe got what they wanted. Maybe they found the individuals that they needed. Some believe that the book, Liber Primus, and its runes from Puzzle 3 hadn't been fully solved to the necessary lengths. And it's important to note, and this is a sidebar here, but people continued to act on Cicada's behalf, right? They wanted to take credit for being Cicada. And in fact, there was a digital attack on Planned Parenthood that happened, and whoever did that claimed or supposed that they were 3301. So Cicada wasn't silent in 2015 purely because of this, and on July 27th, they tweeted a pastebin link, or a text storage site link, containing that PGP signature and a message that distanced themselves from that attack, saying, that wasn't us, and here's our PGP signature to confirm that. But again, outside of that little mishap, they were silent for 2015. 2016 comes around, again, no puzzle. So people are starting to go, okay, well maybe this book has something to do with this. Eventually, Cicada did post the following message, once again, that very same PGP signature, and this was via Twitter, and it said, quote, "Hello, the path lies empty. Epiphany seeks the devoted. Liber Primus is the way. Its words are the map, their meaning is the road, and their numbers are the direction. Seek and you will be found. Good luck." End quote. So this again, this essentially confirmed to people, all right, we need to finish that book.
Yeah.
Or we're not going to get anything else.
Oh, I mean, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're just like, okay, we might have went too far with this one. This
Right.
is extremely difficult.
Like, here's some clues.
You gotta go back and
Words
finish
and the
it.
numbers and the, oh crap, guys,
Our intern
we overcooked
spent
it.
way too much time on this. You gotta figure it out.
Yeah. And at this point, I'm starting to go, all right, if this is an ARG, this business is willing to wait quite a while before dropping its final whatever it is, right?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they're in a rush whatsoever.
No.
Just coming back when they choose to, and interesting that they're, actively watching.
Yeah.
Okay.
From Planned Parenthood that claimed to be them, and they're like, nah, it wasn't us.
That's good that they came out and said, hey, I know we're silent, but that ain't us.
Yeah.
Don't stop with this false stuff.
And of course, randoms on the internet are, hey, trying to essentially take action, claiming to be a part of them or to be them. At least that's just the way the internet goes.
Right. People just want attention. They want to be like, I'm that strong cryptographer, man. Look at me. I'm the one with the clues. But
Yeah.
since 2016, there has only been one further update, and that came on April 29th, 2017. A member of the community attempting to solve Cicada claimed to find a new PGP signed message from the group. And it said as follows, quote, "Beware false paths. Always verify PGP signature from 7A35090F. Signed 3301. End quote." Found that on the Pastebin website that I mentioned earlier, where they distanced themselves from that Planned Parenthood attack. But after this point, and again, I take this part with a grain of salt, but at this point, that's it. That is everything that you can know about Cicada at this point. Everything else has yet to be uncovered, or deciphered, or solved, or figured out. You have the book of
confirm with you. Airflow down, which means, see that, airflow down? That means it would go in like this, so your airflow is going that way, correct? Makes sense, right? Airflow and the air is in there. See this airflow? So that's where the air would be flowing, correct? Pointing that direction. Yeah, so it would be going like that. Yeah, okay. Well, the first one they got was covered in dust on the side. Couldn't tell. And it took time. I'm pretty sure it might. Because I can always Google that too. Jet flush level. Yeah. Yeah, got it right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Because usually most answers like that, a lot of people Google and there's already an answer just waiting for you. Do I have Dustin right here? You got the garbage bag there? Take out the garbage bag. Is that door open or closed? Is the door open? It's 69.
Believe that they are very grounded in their beliefs. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe older, wiser in terms of an organization. They're simply because they're just so low key. They're very much just like we're gonna put out what we need to get out there, and then that's it, right? Like they're not touching anything else. They're not talking a bunch on Twitter. You know, they're not TikToking like.
Right.
Or are they?
That's the thing, man, is that as public as we think that this is, or feel that it is, you could live your whole life and never have heard of this.
Yeah.
It's prolific only when you look for it. At that point, it's unignorable. It's irrefutable. It's everywhere. The footprint is enormous. But again, not until you know about it do you know about it.
Yeah.
It's very strange. But that kind of leads us into a newer theory that is on the table. It kind of builds off the idea of the hacker group or the cult mentality that we were assessing in part one, but this one has a little bit more credence to it. So, around the time of Puzzle 2, an anonymous user who claimed to be involved with Cicada said that it was a secret global society comprised of military officers, diplomats, and academics who strong statement, but I will provide evidence to support these claims. End quote.
Get out of here. What?
Now my spine is tingling again.
Whoa.
It just got, it just got dark again for me.
And like, the balls too on that first one.
That is a claim.
And I've got evidence. Like, ooh, that's juicy. That's good stuff right there.
Yeah, and Christian notes that personally, he thinks that this might be one of the email leakers that we discussed previously. But what's creepy, if not straight up unsettling, is that at this point, we are unsure if that evidence was ever produced, and they disappeared. So we haven't heard of these individuals again, or whoever this anonymous user was. So they came out swinging hard, saying some things, and no evidence came, and they disappeared.
You know, I was just about to say, I was like, very, like, my goodness, bold to...
Very bold.
To just, I mean, why, just put it all out there.
Yeah.
Just throw it all, I mean, like, if this is, you know, you're
Drop
saying
it
this
like
is
it's
a
hot.
nefarious group, right? Like, drop it like the hottest mixtape of the year. Like, put that out there, let the world know.
Yeah.
And because
You don't half step into that arena. You don't fiddle with a little bit of that.
I'm not surprised.
Down and then not finish what you're saying.
I'm not surprised that this person didn't show up ever again.
Yeah.
I would think that if it's a secret organization, if it's, you know, tied to like some type of plot I've seen in a movie, like, no way you're gonna be, you got days to live.
Right. This is where you get bag and tag. This is where you get disappeared in the morning hours before the sun rises. But this makes me start to think, is this, I know that this is one of those popular theories that gets stamped on everything, but this is where I seriously start to consider the idea of a new world order, a secret cabal behind the scenes that controls internationally. Right? Yeah, we're looking for smart individuals across the world, or maybe they are just individuals who, I don't know, like, again, like this guy's saying, aren't happy with the way of the world. And yeah, this might not be the best method, but it's like chaotic neutral, right? Or like, I don't know, evil good, right? Where you like, I don't care what burns, but you know, this isn't right.
You know what's a little interesting? Saying that this organization, it's like, hey, I've been a part of this organization for 10 years.
Yeah.
Very powerful people across the world. Like, why even put yourselves out there in the first
Why?
place? Yeah,
Exactly.
if they've been running for, you know, air quotes, 10 years, then it seems like they've been just fine. Like,
Right.
who are they gonna find out there on the internet that is going to revolutionize their company, right?
Listen, I guarantee 99% of the people that heard this were like, hey man, thanks for the cool information. I'm just like, I like mysteries, but you're screwed. I can't help.
Yeah. Also, damn, I mean, if that's Reddit, like, if this is actually true, I'd be so interested just to see the steps and then, like, kind of like the points of no return, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
this is
No
like
return.
spy
The
movies,
final
big old
curtain.
conspiracy.
I think it's worth diving into, by the way. He likened it to a left-hand path religion. I had to look that up because I wasn't exactly sure what that was. There's the left-hand path and a right-hand path. But very, very simply, in Wikipedia, the left-hand path, they often reject societal convention and status quo. They tend to embrace magical techniques that would traditionally be viewed as taboo. They question religious and moral dogma, instead adhering to the principles of anarchy. That's a point that I want to highlight for right now. And another piece that was a little weird, but I wanted to note was they embrace sexuality and use it in magical rituals. So weird because twice now we've heard about magic and magical rituals that don't really align with the technology-oriented clues that we've had thus far. But the anarchy piece, to me, stands out, and it kind of connects to the cypherpunk movement and the hacker movement of the early internet. So that is interesting. And that's what we have as far as theories. I tend to want to subscribe to the hacker group combined a little bit with that secret society piece, but let's talk about people that solve this puzzle. This is like the pièce de résistance. Let's hear from the people who claim to have made it through, what their saying what stories they have to unveil, what information can they help us with to convey what exactly is going on here. And then I think it might backwards substantiate some of those theories that we discussed.
Yeah.
So the first individual I want to talk about is Joel Eriksson. He's a 34-year-old crypto security researcher and developer in Sweden. He solved Puzzle 1, but was unfortunately not quick enough to make it to the email stage. He was locked out of the time gate.
It wasn't fast enough.
Not fast enough. And the problem is, I feel like this guy was absolutely smart enough to have done it by himself. And, you know, Cicada kind of pointed this out, but I think a lot of people snuck through that time gate that probably didn't earn it. You know, they just kind of slept there, eating their Cheetos, you know, rubbing their fingers while they waited for everyone to do the clues. And then at the 11th hour, they're like, I clicked the link first. I'm in.
Yeah, I'm sure they would have weeded those guys
Instantly,
out real
right?
quick.
Oh yeah. But one of his theories that I thought was interesting about who Cicada was he thought it was an underground society. And he said as, quote, their constant references to prime numbers and the like, they are likely intellectual, anti-establishment, ideologically driven, and they seem to be valuing logical
All right, sale time.
analytical
The
thinking
goods
very
are loaded
highly.
up at Los...
They seem to share a lot of ideology with the crypto-anarchy movement and old-school hackers. So this guy kind of substantiates some of my gut instincts looking back at some of those theories. But that's all we have, you know, if you distill it down to the takeaway lessons for Joel. And again, I'll say, if you guys want to read about any of these articles that any of these individuals have been a part of, I encourage you to do so. But we did our best to pull out all of the facts, or all of the pieces that probably have the most meat on them and have the most substantial evidence towards this mystery. The next individual is quite interesting. His name is Marcus Warner, and he actually had that interview with the Rolling Stone magazine that I had mentioned earlier. And he had the most details to offer with regards to Cicada and their end goal. So what's interesting here, and what makes me feel terrible as a human being, or as anybody in the workplace, was that he solved Puzzle 1 when he was only 15. Right.
Genius.
Right. I mean, like, when I was 15, I was like burning days playing video games.
Yep, that's what I was doing.
Seemingly, he verified the leaked email that we discussed in part 1 regarding Puzzle 1. He made it past the time-gated webpage of Puzzle 1, and he began work on what was known as the Cicada Anonymous Key Escrow System. Of course, simplified to cakes, because these days everything is secretly cake.
Yep, it's all a cake.
But along with a few members from Cicada, as well as approximately 20 people, that was by his count, 20 people that made it through the puzzle, he was working on that project. And it was software that was designed to protect whistleblowers, which is interesting because, you know, this is around the time that Edward Snowden was a household name. And since that year, even 2012, you know, whistleblowing has been a tremendous topic in the political spectrum. I mean, I don't know if that's for better or worse, but I think in the digital age, information is flying out left and right, some of it fake, some of it real. So, you know, there's something honorable about, you know, trying to, when you combine some of these supposed messages that we heard of Cicada before, combining it with this honorable, potentially, mission of helping whistleblowers, there's something good, which kind of calms me down a little bit because it feels a little less nefarious, it feels a little bit more positive driven. But he was saying, you know, that the